One, two, three, testing. It's raining outside. Have a fan on. Let's see if they show up. Alright, let's finally get this started. Oh god. Hello! I'm Chanel, and my pronouns are they, them, and theirs. Welcome to episode 38 of the Pipernell podcast. The first one I am recording from my new home in Colorado. So today is August 18th, 2018. It's been almost half a month since more than half a month since I've been in the area, and probably way more than a month before, after, whatever, my last episode. If you are a new viewer, thanks for checking me out. If you're an old viewer, thanks for sticking with me. If you're new, you're not missing out on anything, because with like the new location and everything, I do feel like this is kind of like a reset, so whatever. Yeah, I mean, you're not missing much. This just captures whatever I'm doing at the moment. And, shouldn't dwell on the past too much. Anyway, rambling already. So I'm a knitter, spinner, and designer on the fiber side of things. And I have a background in physics and computer engineering. So, as I mentioned, I am new to Colorado. I've recently relocated to Boulder, Colorado to start a PhD program where I'll be researching smart textiles and seeing if I can kind of mash up these two different worlds that I've been in for the past couple of years. And I feel like this is really kind of a good development for my podcast too, because I really started my podcast when I was in my senior year of undergrad and really struggling with balancing these two things. And now I feel like I'm now navigating into a marriage of them. So that's going to be nice, hopefully. I'm looking forward to it. I'm super excited. So on social media, since this is a Pipernell podcast, you can find me as Pipernell, Pipernell, in most places on the internet, and Instagram, Ravelry, here on YouTube, obviously. I have a Facebook page, Pipernell, but there's a space between Piper and Nell. And my designs are under my legal name, Chanel Wu, Shanel, last name WU, on Ravelry. So that's where you can find me. Today, what I have for you, I have news, just like design updates, whatever else I'm doing that's worth noting. And then I have a rundown of some knitting projects, not all of them because I have way too many, but the exciting ones. A little bit of spinning, a little bit about babble about weaving. There's less show and tell in those two sections. More just talking about kind of the situations and projects and circumstances surrounding my practices over the past couple of weeks in those crafts. Weaving especially focuses on what I've been doing in the first couple of weeks of my research. And then I have a life update for whatever I don't babble about during those earlier sections. And then I'll just wrap up because I don't want to hold you here forever. So, let's just jump straight into news. So probably the biggest piece of news is that I've published the Druid Circle sweater. I published that July 30th, right after I got to town in Colorado. And apparently it's pronounced Colorado by natives. As a Nevadan, I can support this. So anyway, I had a bit of downtime before I started my new job in lab. So I was able to publish the Druid Circle and take care of social media surrounding that and everything. So you can find it on Ravelry on sale for $7. Is the early bird promotion is over because I'm slow at recording. But anyway, I think $7 is still a pretty good price for it because you do get a lot of technical support. In the pattern itself, you get details and guidelines on how to modify the sweater to fit your body the way that you want to. And yeah, I'm just really excited to release my first ever garment design it's been my best performing design so far, so I take that as a good sign. And I have a couple of more ideas for garments in the works. We'll see when I get to them. But yeah, I'm really having fun with it. I love doing the math of grading the garment. What I really want to expand upon in my future designs is this whole idea of gender neutral sizing and language in the pattern, and of being able to adapt to a diverse variety of bodies, body types, sexes, and so on. So yeah. Yeah, you can find it on Ravelry. There is a knit-along going on right now, which I will talk a little bit more about after my second update, because that will make more sense. So, I have started streaming with my D&D group, my Dungeons & Dragons group, on Dungeons & Dropped Stitches. So, Melissa Skananigans is our Dungeon Master, DM, and she was the one who kind of got this whole stream thing in motion, and so we are streaming our games, which we are all knitters, and we play Dungeons and Dragons, and we don't talk too much about our knitting. We will mention our projects at the beginning, but throughout our campaign we do sprinkle in fiber references, and we do think about, do our characters do that? My character does not. It's been fun role-playing a beginner knitter. I mean, that's really, really secondary or tertiary to the rest of what my character does, but that's been fun. So, yeah, we're Dungeons & Dropped Stitches on Instagram. That is A-N-D spelled out. I don't know if people would search it with just the N. We mostly stream to YouTube. That's where we've gotten most of our viewerships, but to also plug into our hybrid audience of gamers and fiber crafters. We are also streaming to Twitch if you like watching live streams there. All of our archives are posted on YouTube, and we do have a Ravelry group, Dungeons & Drop Stitches. I believe that one has an ampersand. I don't know. Just search Dungeons Drop Stitches, those 3 keywords, you'll get it. So that's where the knit-along for the Druid Circle is going to be housed. It started on August 16th on our Thursday, our most recent Thursday stream. So we stream every most Thursdays. We have some life stuff coming up, but we will be streaming every Thursday at 7:30 Eastern time. I'm now on Mountain Time, so for me that's 5:30 Mountain Time. And yeah, that's where the knit-along thread is. You can cast, if you cast on now, that's totally fine. We don't have a set, end date, yeah. End date yet. But we are, this Sunday, if I get this uploaded before tomorrow, we are having a knit night stream where we'll all just be working on our projects, and I will be there to answer any questions about the Druid Circle or about stranded knitting, top-down sweater construction, just any questions that you might have. So drop in on that live chat while we're streaming, and we can answer your questions on air. And I know I'll already have some interesting discussions with members of my party who are already knitting the sweater, and they've sent me their ideas for modifications, which will be really interesting. I've babbled on already so much about news. Just one more thing, the Summer of Skeins, which is quickly turning into just seasons of skeins, spin-along is still going on. I will do more work to get that more active, but that is in my Ravelry group, the Pipernell Podcast. You should post the spinning that you're working on. Or if you are using hand-spun, that is also eligible, because I do want to include non-spinners. So check that out. That's going to be fun. I just want to talk more about spinning with people. But anyway, I need to move on from news, and let's talk about some knitting. And the first thing that I have to show, so I'm going to start with what I've finished lately. These were all projects that I've been working on for the past couple of weeks, or I was working on during my move when I had some downtime. Yeah, my move was a road trip, so since I was the only one driving, I didn't have too much knitting time, but it was like so I had crafting time when I was taking breaks or just resting for the night with whoever I was staying. So my first thing is an FO that I cast on about the night before I left on my trip, and then I finished somewhere along the road. So it is the Druid Crown hat. This is, the pattern is named Druid Crown because this is going to be the matching hat to the Druid Circle sweater. I got the great idea from Ellie of Skandir to create a coordinating hat for a garment, because the hat does kind of can serve as a swatch. You can use up leftovers if you have that from your sweater, or it's just, it's also more accessible as a stranded project to someone who might not be as confident in their stranded colorwork skills yet. So I thought I'd whip up a hat. I really did want to use up my leftover yarn too, and this will be nice. I can wear a matching set when it gets cold. So yep, this is not much to say. I did have to modify the chart, because for the Druid Circle, both charts that you use on the yoke and the sleeves have decreases or increases built in. So I just tweaked the chart so that it was a straight. There were no increases or decreases, which did change the design very subtly. It still coordinates pretty obviously. I'm always playing around with these little pips on the top and the bottom. I don't know, I wasn't really, like, referencing any Fair Isle motifs or anything. I was just like, I just need some short color repeats, simple things to just kind of frame the leaves and what people have taken to calling the braids, which I like. Yeah, this kind of braided band, that comes in, well, that kind of grounds the leaves. So yep, 1x1 ribbing to match the sweater on the brim, and then I really didn't do any shaping besides the crown shaping, and that was, I thought a nice spiral shape would look nice. So I think that's what I will write into the pattern. So I should be able to just bang out this pattern, but I've been so bad about writing stuff. Okay, yeah, so I intend the pattern to have kind of a close-fitting, like, watch cap beanie option, or a slouchy beanie option. And that's all I have to say about this. I need to photograph it and get testers, and that's it. So my next FO, I also worked on during my trip. I did cast on, or I started it while I was on the second day of my trip. Yeah. And then also, kind of like mostly finished it before I arrived in Boulder, but then, kind of held off on the finishing details for a while. Oh wait, no, it was done. It was wearable by the at the beginning of my last day of driving, so I was actually wearing this underneath, like, okay, so anyway, let me show you first. It is actually a bra, like a cotton bralette that I crocheted, and this idea has been kicking around. Anyway, I was wearing it underneath my shirt, on the last day of driving, and it was really comfy. I just want more cotton undergarments now. So the whole idea behind this bralette is that it is inspired by the Steven Universe character Lapis Lazuli. So if you aren't familiar with Steven Universe, basically have a bunch of characters who are part of a species called gems, and they're gemstone-based alien beings of compressed hard light. And one of the characters is named Lapis Lazuli, and this is her, oh, this is turned inside out. Her gem is this teardrop shape that is located on her back. So I had been playing around with some crocheted bras or just kind of crop tops where you did have where the straps were held in the center by a medallion. By the way, when I crochet something, when I crochet a top, I never make a halter top. Death to halter tops. I hate them. I hate the feeling of having a knot on the back of my neck. It's just, ugh, it's just terrible. I don't know whoever came up with them. Anyway. So one mechanism that I've been exploring to kind of fix the straps on the back, is this kind of medallion that they all go through and attach to really like cinch up the straps so that they don't fall off your shoulders, but you don't have to fasten them behind your neck. They'll just continue through the medallion, down, cross over, and then you can tie behind your back. So, that was all that I did. The yarn that I used was, I have a ton of Knit Picks Dishy, and these particular colors are Kenai, the teal, and Swan, which is kind of a creamy white. It's not a stark white. I did use, this is worsted weight cotton, but I did use an F hook of 3.75 millimeters, which I think, I don't know crochet hook sizes. I just tried out a couple of sizes and then chose the one that got me a fabric I like. But I think the one you normally use for worsted weight is a G or whatever. So this is, I wanted a really nice closed fabric. This is all single crochets, and I did try to make my stitches nice and tight, because, you know, you just want a solid fabric for your coverings. And also I feel like a meshy fabric would just, that you just wouldn't have this nice solid surface on what can be pretty sensitive skin, that would like kind of be more prone to chafing and stuff, which you don't want. Besides the teardrop shaped medallion gem on the back, I actually like the kind of strap configuration I came up with. Let me try to get, this is tangled, great. And that is definitely one drawback of this design. So I'm not sure if I will write it up. But I am pretty happy with how it turned out. This is not working. Oh, sheesh. Let me figure this out. Alright, that's back. So you actually have, you have two sets of straps that cross over multiple times. And I like the kind of, let's see if I put it this way. So you see it kind of crosses over a couple times before you really tie it in the back. So I actually just put on the bra because, like I said, it is comfy. Though I probably do need to just like take the straps out and like relace them, because this has just been thrown around for a while and it got really tangled. So yep, here it is. Here's the front of it. It's just the two cups and the band. And then I just chained up from the points of the cups, and this is what it looks like in the bag if I scooch over this way. Yeah, I really like how the stripes look. That's the teardrop lapis lazuli gem right there on the back. And yeah. And I found it appropriate that these are kind of chains, because one of the powers of this character is that she makes chains of water. So I used a crochet chain for these very long straps, and that she does kind of like chain people up. And so it's kind of a, when it's on, it's a little kind of like bondage shibari in styled, shibari style, like kind of inspired, which I'm down for. So I'm pretty happy with this. I also need to photograph it. I don't know if I'll write up the pattern because I've never written a crochet pattern. If people are interested, yeah, I'm always open to feedback. But that, I think, is all I have to say about the lapis lazuli bra. And my next project I forgot to get. And I forgot to talk about the yarn in the Druid Crown. Well, I just wanted to mention real briefly, it is the same yarn that I used in the Druid Circle. So the body, the main color is Blue Moon Fiber Arts Woo Boo. It's a merino bamboo blend that's about sport weight. It's up to, I found a happy gauge at 6 stitches per inch. And it has a nice sheen, but it's also nice and durable. And then my contrast colors are Northlight Fibers, Water Street DK, which is a merino cashmere blend that's super soft and squishy. But also, definitely a luxury, so I am glad I came up with a design that didn't need a lot of it. Okay, I need to pause, get my next project, and I'll be right back. So this next project is one that you haven't seen in a while, which I am kind of ashamed to admit because this is a commission, and the person who commissioned it is being very patient and a very good friend. But I was commissioned a while back to make a tapestry wall hanging, and what I decided, I was given almost complete freedom, which I think has contributed to my procrastination on it, because I either feel like, oh man, I don't have the energy, and I just like can't really think of what to do on this project next, or I feel guilty and I'm like, oh man, I don't have enough. Okay, it's all about I don't have enough energy. But it's more like, oh, like, you know, I don't have the energy to properly dedicate to this, and then it'll turn out crappy, and it won't be a good piece. So it's, yeah, it's definitely just been, it's been a thinking project in a different way, that it's not the complexity, it's just the kind of creative energy I have to put into this. I mean, it's been a really fun project. And I feel bad for procrastinating so long in it. So I think I have shown you the completed kind of center panel of it. This is going to be a wall hanging in 3 pieces, one for transportability and also for aesthetics. And I've had this middle piece completed for a while, and I started the 2 outer pieces at the same time, and originally I was going to knit them exactly the same, but after a while I really got thrown off by the notion of knitting 2 identical things, and so I have gone 2 very different directions with these 2 pieces. This is the right side. Okay, so I don't know which will go on which side just yet, but basically they're using the same yarns. So the centerpiece I started with this sparkle navy, which is actually ethereal fibers in her sparkle sock base that I bought a while back, and was actually left over from a pair of socks I made with it, and then I kind of I faded, and just a disclaimer, this was kind of before fading was like this whole thing, so I was doing it before it was cool. So we have some various blues. I think I used this for a shawl. There's some Regia blue, like navy-ish, not navy, like a kind of denim-y blue sock in there, and then this really complex turquoise aqua single is Tosh Merino Light in their colorway Esoteric. And I remember that because I used that for like 2 shawl commissions in a row. It's also a really nice color. It's super flattering. I think I've talked about this before, and like I've enabled people to buy this colorway. Anyway, so that kind of navy blue teal progression I reversed on these 2 outer pieces. So I started with the Esoteric, the Tosh Merino Light, and I faded into the denim blue. I didn't have any more of whatever blues I used in the middle for, which is fine, because also now this is like less complex color-wise, which doesn't distract from the focal point being on the centerpiece. So these are really just supposed to be complementary to the center, and then I'm going to end with the navy. I just finished striping in the navy, and you see one side is just plain garter stitch, which is also good because that's the side that's going to be adjacent to the centerpiece with everything going on. And the outsides are, I'm making a little more frilly. So on this one, this side has some kind of abstract freeform lace, And then I have some open work with drop stitches that I mean to weave in fiber, like I did on the centerpiece. And so this side is like really open and lacy, and I didn't stop increasing at the edge. So I actually started increasing even more as a crescent shawl. So this side is going to have kind of a really long tail, or end that's going to come off and drape nicely. And on this piece, I continued increasing on one side, but I eventually started squaring it off. So all three of these pieces were started with a garter tap as a center out triangular shawl, basically, and then I just did crazy stuff. So again, also garter stitch on one side. On this side, it is a little more patterned, but with less open work going on. There's some moss stitch here. There's just ribbing with some eyelets. So this side is kind of more restrained. And I don't think I'm going to be weaving in unspun fiber on this side. And some of the fiber that I have been using, I did do actually a row of eyelash yarn. I don't want to do that again. But I do still have plenty of this merino unspun top. And I just took the drop stitch rows and just kind of like wove it in and then fluffed it up to make these bubbles. This is alpaca roving that has been dyed in shades of green and blue. And I'm thinking of working both of these fibers into the side panels to kind of carry that through. But yeah, so as you can tell, this is a very free-form project. Very unstructured, so I think the lack of structure might also have contributed to me completing this slowly. Is I'm not following a pattern, I'm not really planning it out. It's just kind of like I have to put in all the creative energy in as I'm doing the project, and I'm not really like centering it all at the beginning in the planning stage or something. But it's been a really cool project. I've learned a lot. I don't think I am not writing a pattern from this. I don't even know. So, just gonna toss those aside. And then, my next project is also so far nameless, but I have a pretty set idea of what's going on, and I've just kind of set in the plan. I haven't written up the instructions or anything. But as you might have picked up, this is also a design. It's a shawl. I needed some mindless knitting as I'm getting settled in. So I think like my second day when I moved here, I went to a cafe and I cast this on. I had had these two skeins wound up and paired up for a while to make a 2-color shawl. And I had like done a sketch of this and everything maybe a couple months back, and I'm just now getting to the space where I can knit on it. So let me spread it out a little better. So this is a pretty mindless boomerang shawl that I've been knitting on for a couple of weeks now. So you start at the corner in garter stitch, and actually you start exactly the same as the roulotte shawl. With the kind of boomerang construction and I-cord on one edge. So you just using short rows, you're only ever working with one color at a time. So using short rows, you form these asymmetrical triangles in pairs. So I did one in the blue and then one in the yellow multi, and one in the blue and one in the yellow multi. And as they keep progressing in the shawl, they get bigger and bigger until they're super huge. And I didn't have enough yellow and blue to do one more, so I switched the color. And basically, I'm trying to make this a shawl where you don't have to think about it, but you can use up as much as you want of one special color, and then also kind of wing it with the others, with the second skein. I might also do a version with 2 skeins of your main color, and then one contrast color that kind of zigzags on the boundaries between these triangles. We'll see. So far this has no name. I named the project on Ravelry Gay Triangles because this multi really reminds me of the pansexual pride flag with its pink, its yellow, and its blues. And I should mention what yarn this is. This yellow multi is from Marionated Yarns in her Practicality sock base. So this is also making me think of New Jersey. Because Marionated Yarns by Marion is a really awesome indie dyer in New Jersey. She does a lot of solids, like really nice solids for sweaters. But, I mean, when she does multis, she does them fantastically, of course. And this is her sock base, a 7525. I think this would knit up great in socks. And what makes this even sweeter is that she sent me this skein as kind of a cheer up present when I was in a super stressful period of a lot of my, I'm usually stressed out, but I guess I was like super stressed out. And yeah, I was in a rough place, and she sent me this skein, and it really did brighten my day. It's called Fruit Stripe Gum. And yeah, thank you so much, Marion, and I hope this is doing your yarn justice. The skein that I paired it with is this tonal blue, which is from Manos del Uruguay, Alegria. They're also their sock yarn. And it's either Oceano or Blueberry. I'm not sure which blue it is, but I think it picks up these blues in Marion's yarn really nicely, and it's a good contrasting color. So yeah, I'm almost done with this, since I mentioned I finished the last kind of like triangle pair, and then I started another one with the colors flipped until I ran out of the yellow, until I ran out of the multi, and then now I'm just going to finish the rest of the shawl in this blue. My plan is to finish filling in this triangle and then picking up stitches along this edge, along this selvage for an I-cord bind-off. Kind of like what I did with the roulotte shawl, if you've knit that. And yeah, it's been a nice soothing knit. It's all garter stitch, no purls. I used German short rows. In the first triangle, I used just wrap and turn short rows, and the German short rows just created a way nicer edge. And it's giving me a lot of opportunity to analyze the kind of the structure and the just the mechanics of the German short row heel, and that yeah, it really is a different. It is a different way of catching the turning yarn in the short row method, and I think that is what contributes to what makes it so neat looking, is that when most short rows are, you turn around before the end of a row, all short rows, so you're turning around before the end of your row, and in order to prevent that hole, you have to pick up a little slip of yarn. So in a wrap and turn short row, this would be a wrap. And then you have to pick up that little turning bit and incorporate it in with your stitches to hide it and also to further close up the gap. And so the German short row has the shortest turning bit of yarn, which I think gives it its most closed look. But yeah, the initial thoughts, I would like to analyze this a little more. But yeah, and I am taking forever on these knitting projects today, so I just have one more. It is a whip. It's not a design. It's not, I'm knitting someone else's pattern, and since I started really getting into designing, I've definitely made a distinction between my design projects and my projects that I am not designing. And the projects I am not designing have definitely turned into my personal treat projects. So what I'm working on now, with yarn that I got on my trip, but I didn't cast on until after I got back, is the Bolin Tee by Layla Robb for Quinton Company. So Fibergé Knits and Bolts, which is a yarn shop in Cincinnati, Ohio, that my friend Melissa Skeynanigans, aka my benevolent, please don't kill me DM. She worked there, and they had a knit-along for this pattern that I had fallen in love with a while ago, and this finally kicked me in the ass enough to pick it up and knit it. And they happen to carry Quince & Company Sparrow, so I bought the yarn when I was in Cincinnati on my trip, and I got this really nice port color. And come to think of it, this is kind of similar to the Druid Circle. I think this is one of the colors that I wear really well, kind of a dark red maroon. And it is Quince & Company Sparrow, which is a fingering weight linen. It's my first time working with 100% linen yarn. It's really nice. I did swatch because I had never worked with linen, and this is a garment, the Bolin Tee by Layla Robb. It's you knit it in pieces as a kind of t-shirt, and yeah, I had to swatch because this is yarn I've never worked with before, and I wanted this to have a nice fit. So I swatched in stockinette, and I got the stitch gauge, but not the row gauge recommended on the pattern. And so I was interested in, I definitely had to block this because one of the features of linen is that it definitely transforms with blocking and with wear and washing. So I blocked it, but I actually put in a little more effort into my washing process than I normally do. When I wash it and block like say a woolen sweater like I did for Druid Circle, I just soaked it in cold water, put in a bit of soap, rinsed it out, and then dried it flat. So with the linen, I did want to simulate some wearing to see how it would behave as kind of it gets more wear. So when I was washing the swatch, I actually filled up a small tub with hot water. And, okay, what did I use? I used dish soap, yeah. So I was not gonna baby this thing. And I really, like, scrubbed it around in the hot water, and then, kind of, yeah, took it out, rinsed it, wrung out the water, kind of smacked it against my blocking mat a couple of times, then pinned it out. And, I mean, it feels great. Let me get it. So this is my blocked swatch, and you can really see that it has much better drape than the fabric that's on my needles. So what I found interesting about this swatch is that it didn't grow so much in the stitch width. So I still got 5 stitches per inch widthwise, but my row gauge really stretched, and it can keep stretching. So I got a couple of rows below the row gauge, but as with most of my garments, I care less about row gauge than I do about stitch gauge. Stitch gauge is harder to adjust for, and like usually because you cast on a set number of stitches, it usually means changing your cast on. But if your row gauge is off, then you can work more rows or fewer rows, and that usually won't involve too much intense modifying of the pattern. Anyway, I mean, I got row gauge on this after blocking, so I am totally fine sticking to my needle size, which is US 4, 3.5 millimeters, which is what the pattern calls for. I am extremely privileged in that I usually get gauge with the suggested needle size, and, but one suggestion I got was to use bamboo or wood needles, and I really don't own a lot of those, and I love my metal needles, so I'm knitting with Chaogu, they're stainless steel needles. I don't mind. It is kind of slippery, the stitches do kind of want to jump off, but that's the thrill of it. I don't mind it. I feel like it makes my knitting go more quickly, which I'm fine with. So yeah, I'm having a lot of fun with this. I love the feeling of the linen yarn. It gives such a different kind of tactile response than a wool yarn. Like, wool yarn stretches and shrinks up and bounces, but linen just, I don't know, it just has a lot of character. So yeah, I'm really enjoying this. And that's really all that's worth mentioning about my knitting lately. So I am going to take a quick break, and then I'll be back with my other crafts. Okay, that break turned out to be a little longer than intended. I had this weird energy crash. But hopefully I will get back into the groove of things. So, let's see, where was I? Spinning. So, haven't been doing too much spinning. In fact, I don't have anything to show for this section, just stuff to talk about. Just like where and when I've been spinning. So, before my move, I had a little house cooling party. And where, in contrast to a housewarming party, it was, just kind of like, hey, I'm about to leave the area, I want to invite you all over, and invited some friends over who hadn't been to visit my apartment yet because they were living in New York City, and I was over in New Jersey. It's kind of a hike to get there, but it was kind of like my last chance to meet up with them, before I moved. So they came over, we ordered takeout, and I had some, like, games prepared for them. It's like, hey, let's play board games and card games and stuff. And I was, if anyone was interested, I was gonna run, actually, like, a one-shot of Honey Heist, which is a super fun, ridiculous, very simple tabletop role-playing game. But everyone got distracted by my spinning wheel. My little ladybug. Lady love. And they ended up just being super fascinated with my spinning wheel, and the rest of the party in the night was just me teaching my 4 friends who came over how spinning works and letting them try the spinning wheel. And I actually, so they had, like, this crazy yarn, crazy thick and thin yarn from a beginner trying to use a wheel. And so I actually plied up that yarn, because plying tames the craziness of a super thick and thin single that might not be evenly spun, but it's super cute. I can't find it. It's all a mishmash of colors. Yeah, I plied it once I got to Colorado. And I haven't been doing too much personal spinning. I started spinning a braid, when I actually had a friend come over and she brought her wheels, so we had a spinning date, which was nice. So yeah, it's really been more of, lately spinning has been more like how I've been facilitating some fiber community. But yeah, I didn't get any done while I was traveling because, since I was driving, I buckled my spinning wheel into the passenger seat, and it, she was partially disassembled. I had to take the bobbin and the flyer assembly off and put it in the box for traveling, and it was just too much moving, plus my car was crammed to shit inside. Like, I could not take anything out besides my, like, basic personal belongings that I had packed, like a duffel bag and a backpack, to take out when I stopped for nights. So yeah, not much spinning. Spun with my friend Jasmine, and I need to get back into the swing of spinning. But I think designing and knitting has definitely been dominating my not at lab time. But spinning has come up in lab too. That is something that I'm excited to bring to the space. So they've mostly been doing weaving and some knitting and crochet, but really not much spinning at all. So I brought in one of my favorite spinning books, Yarnitecture by Jillian Moreno. And I am gradually, like, whenever it comes up, bringing in my knowledge of, like, how yarn is constructed, how fiber behaves. So, there was actually a moment in lab when, so they had figured out how to basically cable ply a conductive wire with a cotton yarn, and that was useful because The way they did it was they took the wire and the cotton yarn, plied them together with a drop spindle, and then took that length, folded it in half. This was only about an arm's length. Folded that length in half, and then plied it in the opposite direction. So if this was perfectly balanced, this would be a cable ply. It didn't quite turn out that way. Basically, it's a 4-ply. And because you bent that in half, the wire both ends of the wire were coming out of a single end, which makes it useful for incorporating it into certain circuits. But I was able to kind of like just put that in the proper spinning and plying terms, because they were having trouble with the distinction between spinning and plying, and if you're going to write that into a technical paper, you have to be precise with your language. So that was satisfying to be able to help with that. And I'm really interested in the future in spinning. So that was using plying to create a custom conductive yarn. I'm interested in maybe how you could hand spin a single that's conductive and then ply it in different ways for all sorts of properties. So that's going to be exciting. But that's all I have for spinning. So then, weaving. So weaving is probably going to be a regular segment now, but it's mostly going to be discussing what I do in my research. Because I personally don't have a loom. I actually did inherit an old tapestry loom from a roommate's. And it was a roommate, and they're technically their exes, so they just wanted to like get rid of those bad memories. I haven't done anything on that yet, but in my lab we have a couple of rigid heddle looms. There's one big shocked baby wolf loom. Most of these things are shocked because they're based in Boulder. And that is an 8-shaft floor loom with 10 treadles. So that's giving me some freedom for designing and realizing fabrics. And then there is, of course, the big one that everyone's excited for. We're getting the TC2, which is a digital jacquard loom. The one that I learned to weave on that I talked about last episode when I was in Hendersonville, North Carolina. And that's why I was sent there, to get trained on the loom, and to bring that knowledge straight into lab with me. It was supposed to get here around the beginning of August, around the same time I was supposed to arrive in lab, so I've been calling it my lab twin. And for those of you not in academia, there's definitely like kind of an academic family type of thing where it's like when you start your work, or your advisor is kind of like your academic parent. So technically, let's see. I mean, so yeah, my advisor would be, I guess, my academic mom. The undergrads are like the academic babies, which might make her their academic grandma. I don't know. There's the dog. We have a dog and 2 cats in this house currently. The 2 cats should be gone in a couple of weeks, but the dog is here to stay. So I apologize if you hear her barking. She's really sweet. She's just a little protective. And we live in a complex, so there are things that kind of set her on guard. So yeah, since we're researching smart textiles, we're interested in how we can incorporate circuits into fabrics, and a lot of textiles that are considered smart, or there's a difference between smart textiles and e-textiles that I'm still getting a sense of. But with smart textiles, just textiles and fabrics that are electronically capable, a lot of them is like you take a normal piece of cloth and you sew a soft circuit that's bendy with wire into it. And I and my advisor are interested in kind of pushing the electronics further up the production chain. So we're weaving our circuits directly into the fabric. So, like I said, I'm interested in spinning conductive yarns and incorporating electronic capabilities even further from that. I don't think I'll get into like genetically engineering sheep, but like, hey, that could happen. I don't know. I would have to think about if that's like philosophically aligned with what I believe about technology. But yeah, I'm interested. there she goes. Okay. Let me go calm her down. What a fussy dog. Okay, where was I? Okay, so with smart textiles weaving, we are interested in weaving with conductive materials. So that is anything, especially, well, yarns and threads. Though, what is the difference between a yarn and a thread? All these terms I have to think about super technically now that I had been using interchangeably without rigor. And I believe a yarn is a more general term. Thread is a subset of yarn that is used to bind different fabrics together. Anyway, so we weave with conductive yarns, which means that it's a yarn that can carry a current. So some of the things we're using are like weird stainless steel yarns that you're like, what do you do with those? One of our favorites has been a cotton covered copper wire, which is nice because you can kind of strip off the cotton, makes it feel a little more like a regular yarn that you might be used to working with. The wire inside still makes it pliable, but also hold its shape like most wires do. It carries the current, but also the cotton can be kind of easily fuzzed off and cut off. Or I guess you could burn it off, but we haven't done that. And the wire underneath the cotton is not insulated, so it's easy to solder and connect it to any whatever other components are in there. So that's been interesting just because a lot of these, metal fibers behave differently, and I really want to see what they're like, how they prepare these fibers, air quotes, for spinning into yarns. And then another kind of topic that's I see coming up a lot is multi-layer weaving. So double weaving, but also we're definitely going to expand to triple, maybe quadruple weaving. I figured out that on this 8-shaft loom I could do a quadruple weave. I haven't tried it yet because right now I'm in the middle of a piece. But yeah, double weaving is useful for us because you can create very specifically shaped pockets. As in double weave, you weave two distinct fabrics. And that might be useful for like weaving a custom fit glove in one go. Or just, pockets that you can tuck in a normal sensor, like, or, a PCB, what does PCB stand for? Printed circuit board? Yeah. Yeah, so you can stick in electronics that aren't as smart textile compatible, which gives you more flexibility. So a lot of crafting techniques, and I'm interested in being able to pull in all the crafting techniques that I am able to and incorporating them into this, because what I am trying to bring out is the fact that craft is not a stagnant thing. It has been a very important piece of field of technology throughout human development. Like, think about how hard your lives would be if you didn't have the wheel. Is seen as like ancient technology. Needles are super important. String, rope is super important. And these technologies, we do keep building on them, but they also could be still developed in their own right. So that's what I'm interested in. I'm interested in what can we keep doing with weaving, with knitting, with crochet, and incorporate them into what we see as new technologies like computers, sensors, electronics, and so on. But it's all really nebulous right now because I haven't done too much weaving. I warped the baby loom all by myself with 3 yards, and its full width. So I feel like I'm still getting a sense of the mechanics and figuring out like what can these tools do. And then I'm working with the other PhD student to develop software that makes these looms more effective for designing smart textiles. So yeah, I'll just probably keep babbling on about that. I'll check with my advisor to see like what's appropriate to talk about. And yeah, stay tuned on that. And I'm pretty excited that I ended up in this program. So yeah, I look forward to talking about it even more. But that was like very vaguely a weaving section. So I guess this will very vaguely be a life update section. Like with some acquisitions sprinkled in. So as I alluded to before, I did turn my move from New Jersey to Colorado into a road trip. So I broke it up into, it took up 5 days. It was 4 days total of driving. So my first stop was in Pittsburgh. Met up with a friend there, crashed with them, and we had lunch. And it was like, it wasn't just one friend, it was 2 friends that were roommates, and then they were actually looking to get a third roommate, and she also turned out to be a really cool person, so I'm glad I met her. And yeah, just good times connecting with old friends. And then in the morning, I headed to Cincinnati. Cincinnati is where I spent an extra day, making my 4 days of driving into a 5-day trip. And there in Cincinnati, I met up with some cool people, and then my last stop was in Lawrence. So in Cincinnati, since that was kind of like the big, like, fun day of the trip, I met up, well, first of all, I met up with Melissa Skananigans, my DM, and she took me on this whirlwind tour of Cincinnati, and I want to go back. I did not know that Cincinnati was so cool. So I got to her place, just kind of like parked my car, and everywhere where I stopped, whoever, my friends would just look into my car, the car that I was renting, of course. It was a little dinky Chevy Cruze, and I shoved as much as I could in there. I still had to leave behind, like, a coffee table and, like, non-essential furniture, because I was prepared to, I did sell off most of my stuff, and I was prepared to buy new furniture when I arrived here. But, like, you know, all my yarn, my clothes, my electronics, my books, other, like, kind of, some toiletries, my supplies, stuff that I needed to move over, that totally packed the car. So she looked in and she was like, wow, you really packed that car. So dinner that night, I got in around the evening. So we went to dinner for Skyline Chili. I liked it. It's a Cincinnati staple, apparently. I love chili, and they have this great little bit of cinnamon and chocolate, kind of like mole, and then it's just topped with, it's on top of spaghetti, it's topped with a bunch of shredded cheddar cheese. It's great. I love it. I love chili. And I got the mix, so I got both the beans and the meat. If you got just the chili, it was just a lot of meat. I like my chili with a mix of meat and beans. Feel like I'm getting some fiber, but also for me, I just really I like beans, and I also like meat, so why not have both? And then after, we went to Skyline Chili, we did a little shopping / just touristing at Jungle Gyms, which was this amazing wonderland of food. It came off to me like an amusement park. You know, Melissa described it like this. It's an amusement park for foodies, complete with animatronics, fake safari animals outside with a waterfall, just screens blasting the eponymous Jungle Gym, who is exactly who you would expect someone to go by Jungle Gym and open a large food safari called Jungle Gyms. He's this, like, old white dude who wears safari clothes everywhere. And he's like, welcome to Jungle Gyms. And, yeah, it was this massive food store that you could do normal grocery shopping there. You would just be totally overwhelmed. So they had an entire cheese section, an entire sausage section. They had an in-restaurant beer tasting, and you could just, you know, with all these beers on tap, and you could get a pint of beer to sip on while you were shopping, which is totally dangerous for the consumer, a great idea for the business. I feel like if maybe grocery stores should have bars in them, because drunk people make such horrible food decisions that are so good for sales. And there was an entire tea section. There was like little sections and alcoves for a bunch of countries and cuisines. German, Nordic countries, Spain, China, India, you name it. Thailand, you name it, they had a section. Britain, and huge, yeah, did I already say a tea section? A beer, a wine, cider sections, everything. It was ridiculous, and I kept myself fairly reserved. I got little knickknacks. I got a teeny little cast iron pan. I got some gooseberry jam from the Swedish section, and in their Chinese section, and their kind of Asian department was very impressively stocked with what I'm used to going to an Asian specialty supermarket. So whoever their sourcing person is, good job. Also, I don't know how they did it, how they deal with all the import fees. They had an Australian section with Australian candy. Yeah, oh my god, I don't know how they deal with duties and stuff. So yeah, that was Jungle Jim's. It was great. And then we went to sleep, and that night, that night, and then the next morning, that was the full day of exploring Cincinnati. So what did we start with? We had, I don't know. I forget. What was the first thing that we did? I forget, because going to Fabergé was not the first thing that we did. I don't know. So we did go to, yeah, what did we do before? Now I can't remember. Okay, so we went to Fabergé, Knits and Bolts, which is a local yarn store in Cincinnati. So they're combination yarn and sewing quilting, hence the bolts part. I don't sew, so I was only interested in that part of the shop. But yeah, they were really nice, and they had a nice selection of yarn. A lot of it somewhat overlapped with Yarnia, where I was working. But of course, they had Quince & Company, which Yarnia didn't stock. More lines of Araucania, because we were still new and incorporating Araucania into our stock. And so that's where I got my Bolin tea yarn. And yeah, and then when we went across the street, so we wanted to go to a cheese bar that was across the street in the neighborhood. Oh wait, I just remembered what we did in the morning. We went to Findlay Market, which was amazing. So it's a historic public market that has been, I think it's been revitalized. It seemed like there was a period of dormancy, with all these great food stands and shops. We got chocolate there. We went to a nice tea store, Churchill Fine Teas, and they ship, so that's kind of dangerous. And had good lunch there. That's what we did, yeah. And then after lunch, then we headed to Fabergé. From Fabergé, in that neighborhood, there was a cheese bar that we wanted to go to, but they opened really late. So we were like, oh, what can we do to kill the time? So Melissa and I went to a bar also across the street, to kind of kill time and day drink while we waited for the cheese bar to open. And yeah, so Cincinnati was just filled with beer and cheese, good beer, good cheese on all sides. And at the bar, we knit. She was working on a sock. I was working on, I was crocheting my lapis lazuli top that I'm wearing now. And we were just talking about our D&D campaign. We mentioned Critical Role, and the guy who was around the corner from us at the bar just kind of slid over and was like, "Hey, heard you guys talking about D&D. I saw knitting. Thought you guys would be nerds, but now D&D." And in the most non-creepy way ever, he was kind of a middle-aged dad. And it was just, a genuine nerd connection made in public. And he ended up buying our drinks, in, again, a totally non-creepy, like, totally wholesome way. Just like, man, I was so glad to meet humans who share the same interest. I had fun talking to you. Like, let me just pay for your drinks. Yeah, it was great. I forget what I had. I think I had, is that where I had the pineapple IPA, or am I remembering something wrong? Anyway, it was just, all the alcohol places we went to were so nice in terms of like, oh, we take pride in, like, this is how our beer is made, or, well, this is where we source our beer from, and, we'll let you try it. Everything we serve here is good, and you should just try it, and then settle on what you like and get a pint of that. So after we had that drink, then we went to the cheese bar and had burrata, which is, again, amazing. And then, after burrata, we went to fiber optic yarns and fibers. Is that the full name? So they have a brick and mortar store in Cincinnati, and I was like, overwhelming. I've seen them at Rhinebeck and at the New Jersey the New Jersey Fiber Festival. I was not prepared for an entire storefront of them. And so I kept myself to getting just one braid of yarn. One braid of fiber, future yarn. I don't know. Their yarns were mostly solid, so, like, if I was in the market for a sweaters quantity, I totally would have gotten one. But, good thing I didn't. I am totally on a yarn budget and diet, and fast. This is beyond a diet. It's a yarn fast. But I treated myself to a braid of superwash Targhee. I don't think I've spun Targhee before. I've worked with Targhee sock yarn that I really loved. I love the durability and softness of that wool, and also these colors just really stood out to me. These autumny colors. So yeah, it was really cool. Yeah, they had their fiber, they had their yarns, all their lines of yarns, just sorted by sections and colors. They had an area to sit and knit. They even had, well, in the back area, they would be skating up yarn, and I think they did dye it in that, their dye studio was back there. They had a huge tool section, and the fiber wasn't just hand-dyed braids. They also had bulk natural fibers, natural, as in, like, undyed fibers, because they also had some synthetics, and a huge variety of plant fibers that I didn't know you could spin. I wish I'd gotten more there, but I could only, fit so much more into my car. Yeah, and they were really nice. So that was fun, and then after we did fiber optics, so I did 2 yarn shops in a day. That's 2 more than what I normally do, if I'm out and about. So for dinner/drinks, we went to Urban Artifact, which is a brewery that they had taken up the basement of an old church. And there, Melissa and I met up with Jenna, who's also in the adventuring party. She's Jenna Renna on Instagram. And then Celeste, who does the Yarn to Table podcast. So that was so cool to meet them in person. And yeah, we got nice craft beer. We sat and knit in this, like, outdoor side yard next to the church. And they had built up these, like, recycled wood sheds, which are so cool. And I like it. I definitely like it when, like, a pub / a bar has an outdoor area. And not just an outdoor area, but, like, a backyard. It reminded me of the Rice University student bar, which was also in a basement, and then it had picnic tables outside. So I am not high maintenance. I love the, like, down home settings. So yeah, and then we went out for dinner and chatted some more, knit some more, and it was just a really good time. So I had to go to bed pretty early because the next day was my longest day of driving. From Cincinnati to Lawrence, which was going to be the stop for the next night. It was about 9 hours of driving. I did it. It was totally fine, actually. It was interesting to see the kind of hillier Cincinnati, Ohio, Kentucky, Indiana area turn into the plains of Kansas. I swung through I skimmed off the edge of St. Louis. I saw the arch, crossed, I guess I technically crossed both the Mississippi and Missouri rivers briefly, and then drove past St. Louis into Kansas City, and then about half an hour out of Kansas City was Lawrence. And Lawrence, I mean, I had been clued into it when I went to the weaving workshop in Lawrenceville. Hendersonville, sorry. When I went to the weaving workshop in North Carolina. So one of my classmates in the workshop, actually, when I told her I would be passing through Kansas probably on my road trip, she offered me her spare room for me to stay. So that's why, and she lives in Lawrence, so that's why that was my stop. It worked out really well. I had a stop everywhere everywhere along my route, and I could they were spaced out pretty reasonably that I could do a day of driving between them. So yeah, she's a fiber artist, does a lot of weaving. So I went into her basement. In her basement, her husband is a ceramics artist, so their basement is split in half between a ceramic studio and a weaving studio, which is so cool. And actually, her husband gave me one of his mugs. This is one of his mugs. He has casually studied ergonomics, and he's really interested in how you can kind of handcraft things to be more comfortable to people. So he's made ceramic chairs, which are amazing. I saw them. They're brightly painted. They're this really interesting shape that's really good for your back when you sit in them. Because they're ceramic, they're cool in the shade during the summer, but they also warm up in the sun during the winter, so they're just good at regulating temperature. Or you can take advantage of how they conduct heat, and insulate. So that's his stuff. Oh, yeah, so the ergonomics here, he has a little thumb stop on this ceramic mug, so you don't, so it's supposed to be better for your wrist. I like it. And then she weaves a lot of stuff. At the workshop, I saw her, she seemed to be getting into jacquard weaving, and she had all these interesting nature motifs of desert plants, the yucca plants, which are really interesting looking. They just had a large bulb on the ground and then a long stalk, like about 6-7 feet tall. She was playing with not just with satin weaves interspersed with pockets of double weave that she would stuff to give her fabrics more dimensionality. It's just really cool, and I was glad to see her again and get kind of an update on her work a month in. And then in the morning we went out for breakfast, and then I popped into the Yarn Barn, which was Lawrence's local yarn store, which is huge. And I did get some more spinning fiber. I was looking more for like local stuff. So this is spinning fiber, Bonkers Handmade Originals, dyed in Lawrence, Kansas, and it's a merino tencel blend. And I've discovered I like merino and plant fiber, or like longer fiber blends like merino silk, merino bamboo. I think tencel is a bamboo derivative. And yeah, it's also pretty. It'll remind me of Lawrence, Kansas. I want to go back someday, because then it seems like they have a pretty active fiber art scene, and academically I could probably finagle some sort of trip over there, since it was only a day's drive away. Like, I could do a conference there or something. But I'm not sure if I want to drive to Lawrence again, because driving through Kansas was an adventure. I asked my friend Carla, I was like, hey, is it the season for tornadoes? And she's like, no, you should be fine. It's usually earlier in the summer, since it was now the end of July. And so, okay, I'm driving. It's a pretty boring drive. Kansas, especially the more west you get, it was just flat prairie, which was calming to me at first, and I wasn't too worried about it because, for me, growing up in a mountainous region, flatness was pretty novel to me, but I did start zoning out. I guess I didn't sleep well the previous night, and it was just, like, the knowledge that this was the last day of driving. I was mindlessly speeding. I stayed in the left lane too long after passing someone and forgot to shift back, and the highway patrol pulled me over, and I got a ticket, and so I was like, oh, fuck that. But then, okay, so I had a huge panic attack on the side of the highway, and then, I calmed down, and I pull back onto the highway about half an hour in. Then I start driving under some storm clouds, these, like, rolling wall-like, storm clouds. I saw this massive thunderhead. I hear the thunder, I see some lightning, it starts raining, and I'm like, okay, I dealt with some rain when I was in Pennsylvania. It was, like, pretty hazy and stuff. But then it really starts hitting the road, hitting the car, the windows. Like, this is really coming down. It got to whiteout conditions. I saw everyone on the road pull over. And so I did too. I'm like, okay, I'm not a hero. I won't be stupid. I'm gonna pull over because I can't see where I'm going. I can't even see their headlights anymore. Or barely. I saw them pull over, so I did. And we were all just waiting on the shoulder, and as I'm waiting for this to calm down, my phone starts going off with an alarm saying, like, tornado warning in this area until whatever time it was. And at that point, I was like, man, I'm gonna die out here. But I was calmer. The funny thing was, I was calmer during the storm than I was when I was in a total panic and I was shutting down when I had to deal with the highway patrol officer. The storm, I was like, okay, this is actually life-threatening, but, like, I'm pretty calm. So I was able to, like, you know, keep a level head and drive through the tail end of the storm when it cleared. We never saw the tornado. It must have been pretty far away. According to my lab mate, the sky didn't turn yellow, so I was in no danger of hitting the tornado. But yeah, I don't know. I don't have such great, memories of Kansas. I got the full Kansas experience, apparently, though. Almost run in with a tornado, strict highway patrol. Everyone gets ticketed in Kansas, apparently. So yeah, that was the last day of my trip, and I got to Denver pretty late. I got to my house pretty late, around like 10, and I was just wiped. But after that, it's still just been the process of settling in. I think I'm still settling in. I just got a new mattress this week, and it's not in place yet. I have a lot of stuff to organize because the previous tenant left a bunch of his stuff in my closet, which is frustrating. And so, like, you know, organizing has been on my mind a lot. And in particular, kind of organizing my workflow. Hey, look at that segue. So, one thing I saw my bosses doing at Yarnio was they really were effective at organizing themselves. And they used Trello a lot, Trello. So I decided to look into it. It's a totally free service. And what you do is you can create lists of your tasks, and each of your tasks are cards. So it's not just a bullet point, but with each card you can attach files, image files, or a separate checklist, kind of like, you know, like specific tasks that you associate with a project. So what I've been doing is I started a Trello board for my design, and I'm using that to like kind of visualize my design pipeline. And each of my lists are the stages of design. Like, okay, like stage 1 would be I've envisioned that I have a specific vision for this, but I haven't done any work like swatching or putting it to paper, or even like, or maybe sketching it out, but that's still in like the stage 1. Stage 2 is like I am knitting a sample, I finished the sample, I need to write it. Stage 3 is I have written this, I need to send it out. Stage 4 is in testing. And beyond, maybe I should add another stage for like I am maintaining these. I need to kind of like do some admin work on these patterns and make sure that the adequate supports are in place to answer questions and stuff. But yeah, that's been good. And then I also started a separate board for my lab work, because that's also pretty project-based, so that's what Trello's been working well for me for. And yeah, and just continuing to get settled in, and, like, kind of just budgeting my spoons, trying to budget my spoons well. I'm doing pretty okay today. The altitude hasn't super gotten to me, but last weekend I felt really gross and fatigued and exhausted and depressed. And some friends did mention that that might be altitude. But yeah, I'll get used to it. So that's enough rambling about what's been going on in my life. Let's just take this to wrap up. I have a couple of last things to show that we're gonna, like, okay, maybe I could have put this in life updates, but with Dungeons and Drop Stitches going on, we had our kickoff, and lovely, amazing, wonderful human being Melissa sent us each a package. So one of the things that, so we had a kickoff giveaway, and Emily at Wolfiend dyed up a colorway just for us, and then sent each of us a skein. So she sent all of her skeins first to Melissa, and then Melissa added on even more things to the package, and it's amazing. So this is the colorway Natural 20, Wolfiend. That is her label. And these have definitely just become our colors, kind of the teal and purple, because that's our logo, which is animated by Jenna, who I met up with, and she's an amazing graphic designer. And I can't wait to use this for a design. I have an idea, which I need to put in Trello. Basically, I'm looking at either fingerless mitts or socks. That's something that I can easily put as options in the pattern. But the focus would be a stitch pattern that's probably made with twisted stitches, where you make the shape of a 20-sided die, which I can actually show you right here. So this is a 20-sided die that is, like, pretty iconic to Dungeons and Dragons. A lot of your rolls are based on this 20-sided die. So I want to make this shape on a glove or on a mitt or a sock. Focus camera. And so also in the package, I didn't mention it when I showed the Bolin tee, because I'm using one of the stitch markers from my beloved Adoria that Melissa commissioned her to make for us. So this is my character, the cleric's holy symbol. And so a cleric channels kind of divine energy from a god to make their magic, and usually functions as the healer in a party. So my cleric worships a god of luck, Hermod, from Norse mythology. He's been adapted from Norse mythology for kind of the D&D campaign, and I'm just kind of adding on to his mythology and incorporating other, because it's a fantasy setting. So, so this is his holy symbol. He has a winged scroll on one side, and a charging horse on the other. And I was like, oh, wow, how did you get that detail? And the other one, so she sent two. She got 2 stitch markers for each of us. One was the, like, custom one to her character, and then she sent in this little pouch that she sewed herself. And then the second marker was kind of specific to our party. We are the Battle Before Brunch. We battle before brunch, so it's a little axe on a waffle. It's so great. Yeah, and then what else? I think that was it for that package. And then after that, one of my party members, Jen, Ginger and Cotton, she makes stitch markers. She lives all the way in Australia. She sent us a care package full of snacks and food that I am still eating. Tim Tams are amazing. And I had ginger bears and I had the chips and Vegemite. I like Vegemite. I am on board. So she makes stitch markers, and she found these beads of many dice that are adorable, and she made a set for each of us. And I think this card is plantable. That's why it says basil. So yeah, it's just like, wow, I have connected with so many amazing people through this community, and now also through Dungeons and Dragons. And I'm just really grateful for all those people in my life. So before I just ramble on too much, so actually getting to the wrap-up portion of this, looking ahead to next episode, I do have some designs in the pipeline, almost ready to push out to testers. So I have been working on the There and Back Again socks, Taba socks, that I showed last episode or 2 episodes ago. And these are socks or slippers. Right now they're worsted weight sock slippers, where you knit them flat. There are no short rows, no seaming, no nothing. You join as you go, and the whole thing started as a joke / dare, where you make socks that are neither toe up or cuff down, and well, these happen to be both somehow. So yeah, I'll put it in the call. And then I will be putting out a call for the Druid Crown hat soon. So keep an eye out for that. And I should definitely let you all go. Not that you are bound to me in any way. But yeah, thanks so much for listening and watching, everyone. Thanks for supporting my designs. Thank you for the warm reception that Druid Circle has had. Check out the Druid Circle Cal if you're interested in knitting the pattern, because there will also be, like a nice social aspect and technique support. Check out my Ravelry group if you want to keep up with this and show notes. And you can follow me on Instagram, subscribe to me on YouTube, check out Dungeons and Dropped Stitches, and just all the things if you're interested in my work. So thank you so much again for all the support, and I hope you have a really wonderful crafty day. Bye.